Greetings, Chris Newman. We are taking the previous lecture on the levels of human bondage and accomplishment to the next stage. So I'm recycling part of the illustration I used, but as you notice I've added on to it all the section here. So previously we talked about the slave of slave, slave, servant of servant, servant, orphan, adopted son or daughter, true son or daughter, and co-creator with God as a series of levels, also can be seen as a continuum, from the bottom of hell to the God's kingdom, where God's jurisdiction operates through his family ideal. Let's apply this in another sense. We heard of the slave of slaves and the slave, and we also, as a marker, we identified Islam as a faith which is based on people who are called Muslims being slaves to Allah. So we'll use that as a base point. That explains a very powerful truth. So as a slave of Allah, you must graduate from Islam when you become a servant of servants, which is the entering the Old Testament level. And the Old Testament level, there's an image of Moses when God was in a burning bush and spoke to him from this burning bush and said, "You're standing on holy ground, Moses. Take your shoes off and bow down here." Moses right then was acting as a servant of servants, and he was introducing the Old Testament. And I'm also including Hinduism in this area, within this area here, because it has a whole series of laws and regulations which are similar to, I have some parallels with the Old Testament. We've got Deuteronomy and so on, and you have the laws of Manu. So I'm just bringing it up as a cultural understanding. Now, at this point here of servant is the graduation area to graduate from the Old Testament. And this is what occurred, we understand, when Jesus brought in a higher level. John the Baptist as well was involved in that process. Also, interestingly enough, is the transition from Buddhism as well. Because Buddhism, when you ask the Buddhists what Buddha taught, Buddha did not teach about a family relationship with God. He taught more about the existence of the self, quite independent, almost as if it's a separate entity from everything else, the mind and so on. So we graduate from Buddhism and into the New Testament. Now, there is a big marker in the New Testament. Paul, we call him Saint Paul, or the evangelist Paul, says, "We who have received the first fruits of the Spirit wait for the adoption as sons or daughters." So Paul is waiting to be adopted. Paul is waiting to be adopted as a son or daughter of God. So that means the person who's waiting to be adopted is an orphan. So Paul's level is right here at the New Testament. Now, what is interesting to know about the New Testament is that the Christianity and all of the New Testament teaching is contained within what I call the line of the cross. Because the New Testament and Christianity and all these other things have not brought into existence God's true sons and daughters, or his kingdom, his heavenly kingdom, or the co-creatorship and full relationship and experience of God's truth, love and life. And they have not brought the dominion of the tree of life, a topic I cover elsewhere, that's a symbol for Adam and his completion. It hasn't done that. None of these have been able to do that. So at the top of the New Testament, I put all of these realms underneath. I call the realms of the tree of the knowledge good and evil, and they're all bound within those circumstances. And the line of the cross marks exactly the point where we murdered Jesus. We executed Jesus, the people did that, from the position of servants. And they did not understand what they were doing. They were trying to be obedient in some way to the Old Testament law, which said get rid of anybody who's a troublemaker, who doesn't conform to the law, who doesn't obey, who's you know, a troublemaker, theologically worrisome to us. So they called him a blasphemer. Now, I'm going to take the next part and take this forward. Jesus was born, and what is fascinating about him is he was born into a servant culture of the Old Testament. But through his life experience and his effort and grace and so on, and we trace his progress in a whole series of lectures which we give elsewhere, his life course and accomplishment took him past the stage of orphan, past the stage of adopted son or daughter, to the stage of true son, where God could say, and John the Baptist testified, "This is my beloved son, in whom I am well pleased." Right there, he's standing on the edge of the kingdom. Whereas Paul, who most people would say is the ultimate Christian, is down here waiting for adoption. Now you see how this all fits together. So the dominion of the tree of life is the dominion of the true son and daughter of God who are living in his kingdom. So what is blocking us from moving from this realm here of the New Testament, or whatever religious background you have, or cultural understanding, what is stopping us from just doing this in one simple step, saying, I'm here, I've done it already, I'm fully enlightened, I know all my stuff, I'm all good now, I'm free. The line of the fall is what blocks people. They can't get past that. Why? Simple. Jesus found the way through, and then we killed him. So if you kill off the guy who's got the map to the territory, you're going to have a heck of a problem deciphering the information. Especially if you go to someone like Paul, who's an orphan, and ask him, the orphan, what's the way home to God? What's the way home? He doesn't know, he's never been there. So in this case, our model explains very, very clearly the heart of the matter. Right here is the business that we have to look at and investigate. All these levels are going on around us. You can visit different countries on earth and you can find people who are living at these stages of existence. And you can study every religion you want, or every philosophy, materialism, whatever you like. And you're going to end up back inside this model here, the realms of the trees of the knowledge, good and evil, which is the confusion of the world. And if you follow Christian thinking, you're going to end up at the line of the cross. You can't get past that. Not unless you know this business. This is the business that Jesus outlined in his course and accomplishments. He didn't just go click his fingers and have some mysterious revelation. Hard work, years of commitment, his total life invested. Figured it out, cracked out from servant through to son, God's son, all clear. Then murdered, killed by jealous, small-minded people. We're not going to get past this stage here unless we figure out the rest of the journey. And these are the understandings which we already covered on how we understand God and how we understand our life choices. So I lay this before you as a very powerful way to see into your purpose in life, what's going on earth, what on earth is going on in the spiritual world, where Heavenly Father, the Creator God is, where we are, and how to sort the mess out. I'll leave that for you. There's plenty to ponder, and this diagram here builds on my previous one, and it's not easy to get out of the realms of knowledge, good and evil. I explain that in great detail. But the truth sets you free, but you've got to live the truth. Thank you for your thoughts and your attention, and I wish you the very best. Chris Newman.